On a chilly autumn afternoon, the air carried a crispness that hinted at the approaching winter. Leaves crunched underfoot as 14-year-old Marcus Johnson made his way home from school. His backpack hung loosely over one shoulder, and he kicked a pebble along the sidewalk absent-mindedly. The streets were quiet. Most people were either indoors enjoying the warmth of their homes or busy with work elsewhere. But something caught Marcus's eye as he passed by the neighborhood park. Edaway? First glance, it seemed like nothing unusual. A man sitting alone on a wooden bench near the edge of the playground. But there was something about him that didn't sit right with Marcus. The man looked lost, almost frozen in place, staring blankly ahead while clutching what appeared to be an old photograph. His clothes weren't suited for the weather. A thin sweater did little against the biting wind. As Marcus slowed down, curiosity got the better of him. He hesitated, unsure if he should approach. After all, he'd been taught not to talk to strangers. But something inside urged him forward. Maybe it was the look of confusion etched across the man's face, or perhaps it was the slight tremble in his hands as he fiddled nervously with the photo. Whatever it was, Marcus couldn't just walk away. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said softly, taking a cautious step closer. "Are you okay?" The man blinked slowly, turning his head toward the sound of Marcus's voice. For a moment he seemed startled, maybe even frightened. Then his expression softened, though it remained clouded with uncertainty. I don't know where I am," the man admitted, his voice trembling. "This doesn't look familiar." Marcus frowned. Up close he could see the signs more clearly now. The disheveled hair, the tired eyes, the way the man kept glancing around as if searching for something but couldn't quite remember what. It dawned on Marcus that this wasn't just someone who had taken a wrong turn. This man needed help. "What's your name?" Marcus asked gently, lowering himself onto the bench beside him. He spoke slowly, careful not to startle the man further. "Harold," came the reply after a pause. "My name is Harold." "Well, Mr. Harold," Marcus said with a small smile, trying to sound reassuring. "Don't worry. We'll figure this out together. Do you live nearby?" Harold squinted, his brow furrowing as if straining to recall something important. "I think so," he murmured. "There's a house. Yellow shutters, maybe? And roses in the front yard?" Marcus nodded, encouragingly. "That sounds like Mrs. Thompson's house down Elm Street. Let's head that way, okay? If it's not yours, we can try somewhere else." Harold clutched the photograph tighter, nodding hesitantly. Yes, let's go." There was a flicker of relief in his eyes, though it was fleeting. As they stood up, Marcus noticed how unsteady Harold's steps were. Without thinking twice, he offered his arm for support. "Here, hold on to me if you need to." As they walked, Harold began talking, not directly to Marcus, but more to himself. Fragments of stories spilled out, disjointed yet heartfelt. "Roses. She loved roses," he muttered. "Emma always took care of them." He trailed off, then added wistfully, "She's gone now, you know. My Emma. Left me too soon." Though much of what Harold said didn't make complete sense, Marcus listened intently. It was clear that Harold missed someone deeply, someone who had meant the world to him. Despite the sadness in his words, Marcus felt a pang of admiration for this stranger. Here was a man clinging to memories, no matter how faded they might have become. The walk to Elm Street wasn't long, but it felt longer than usual because of Harold's slow pace. Along the way, Marcus tried to keep the conversation light, asking simple questions to keep Harold focused. "Do you have kids, Mr. Harold?" he ventured. "Yes," Harold exclaimed suddenly, brightening for a brief moment. "2 boys and a girl. They're grown now, living far away. Evelyn visits sometimes. She brings flowers." "That's nice," Marcus replied warmly. "Family is important." They reached the house with yellow shutters eventually, but when Harold saw it, his face fell. "No, this isn't it," he said, shaking his head. Disappointment weighed heavily on him. "It's okay," Marcus assured him quickly. "We'll keep looking. Do you remember anything else about your house?" Harold thought hard, his lips moving silently as if rehearsing details in his mind. Finally, he pointed vaguely toward the end of the street. A tree. Big oak tree. With renewed determination, Marcus guided Harold onward. Each step brought them closer to solving the mystery, but it also deepened Marcus's understanding of the man beside him. Harold wasn't just lost geographically. He was adrift in time, caught between fragments of his past and the overwhelming present. Yet despite his confusion, there was a kindness in his demeanor, a gentleness that resonated with Marcus. When they finally arrived at a modest home surrounded by a sprawling oak tree, Harold's face lit up with recognition. "This is it," he exclaimed, his voice filled with relief. "Thank you, young man. Thank you so much." Marcus smiled, feeling a wave of satisfaction wash over him. "You're welcome, Mr. Harold. Just promise me you'll stay safe, okay?" Harold nodded earnestly, patting Marcus's shoulder with gratitude. As Marcus turned to leave, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, a sense that he had done something meaningful, even if it seemed small. Little did he know, this act of kindness would ripple outward in ways he could never have imagined. As Marcus guided Harold toward the house with the big oak tree, he couldn't help but notice how much lighter Harold seemed. The weight of confusion and fear that had clouded his face earlier was slowly lifting, replaced by a fragile sense of relief. When they finally reached the front door, Harold hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the doorknob. It was as though he wasn't entirely sure what to do next, even though he recognized the house. "Do you want me to come inside?" "With you," Marcus offered gently, sensing Harold's hesitation. "Just to make sure everything's okay?" Harold turned to him, his eyes soft with gratitude. "Would you? I'd appreciate that." Marcus nodded and followed Harold inside. The interior of the house was warm but worn, the kind of place that told stories through its scuffed floors and faded wallpaper. Pictures lined the walls, frames, filled with smiling faces frozen in time. There were photos of Harold standing beside a woman with kind eyes, her arm looped through his. In others, two young boys and a girl stood grinning at the camera, their laughter almost audible even in stillness. Harold wandered into the living room, his movements slow and deliberate, as if trying to reorient himself. He sat down on an old recliner chair, sighing deeply. For a moment, he simply stared at the coffee table in front of him, where a vase of dried flowers stood alongside more framed photographs. His fingers brushed against one of them, a picture of the same woman from the wall, this time holding a bouquet of roses. "That's Emma," Harold said softly, catching Marcus's curious gaze. "My wife. She loved flowers." His voice cracked slightly and he looked away, blinking rapidly. Marcus didn't know what to say at first. He hadn't expected Harold to open up like this, but there was something about the way the older man spoke, his tone tinged with both love and loss, that made Marcus feel connected to him. "She sounds amazing," Marcus replied sincerely. "You must miss her a lot." Harold nodded, his expression distant. "Every day," he whispered. Then, after a pause, he added, "But she taught me to always look for the good in people. And today I found that in you." The words hit Marcus like a wave. No one had ever thanked him so deeply before, not for something he thought was just the right thing to do. He shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to respond. All he could manage was a quiet, "I'm glad I could help." Harold leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, he began sharing fragments of his life. Stories about Emma, his children, and the years they'd spent together. Some parts were vivid, full of joy and laughter. Others were hazy, slipping away like sand through his fingers. But Marcus listened intently, hanging on to every word. "There used to be music in this house all the time," Harold said, gesturing vaguely toward an old record player in the corner. "Emma loved to dance. Even when the kids were little, we'd put on songs and spin each other around the living room. They'd laugh so hard." He chuckled softly, though it carried a tinge of sadness. Marcus glanced at the record player, imagining the scene Harold described. "That sounds nice," he said, "like a happy home." It was, Harold agreed. But things change, don't they? People grow up, move away. Time keeps moving, whether you're ready or not. For a brief moment, silence settled between them. Marcus noticed how lonely the house felt despite its warmth. The memories lingered in every corner, but Harold seemed adrift without the people who had once filled it with life. It made Marcus think about his own family, the sacrifices his mom made to keep them afloat, the dreams she encouraged him to chase even when times were tough. You mentioned your kids earlier. Marcus ventured cautiously. Do they visit? Often? Harold's smile faltered. Not as much as they used to. Evelyn tries. She calls sometimes, brings me groceries. But the boys are busy with their own lives now. Can't blame them, really. Life gets complicated. Marcus nodded, understanding more than Harold might have realized. At 14, he already knew what it meant to carry responsibilities beyond your years. Still, he wished Harold's family could see how much he needed them, even if he didn't say it outright. After a while, Harold seemed to tire. His sentences grew shorter, his eyelids heavier. Sensing it was time to leave, Marcus stood up and said, I should get going, Mr. Harold. Are you sure you'll be okay here? Harold nodded, though his grip tightened on Marcus's hand when the boy extended it for a goodbye shake. Thank you again, Harold said earnestly. You've done more for me today than you'll ever know. Feeling awkward under such heartfelt appreciation, Marcus mumbled another, You're welcome, and stepped outside. As he walked back toward his own neighborhood, he couldn't shake the feeling that Harold's gratitude went deeper than just being helped home. It was as if Marcus had reminded him of something important, something Harold had been searching for amidst the fog of his fading memories. When Marcus got home, his mom, Lisa, was in the kitchen stirring a pot of soup. She glanced up as he entered, raising an eyebrow at the thoughtful look on his face. What's got you so deep in thought? She teased. Marcus hesitated, then decided to tell her everything, from finding Harold in the park to walking him home and hearing his stories. Lisa listened quietly, her expression softening as he spoke. That was very kind of you, sweetheart, she said when he finished. But remember, not everyone is as harmless as Mr. Harold. Be careful out there, okay? I will, Mom, Marcus promised. But it felt good, you know? Like I actually made a difference, Lisa smiled, ruffling his hair affectionately. That's because you did. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can mean the world to someone else. Later that night, as Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind kept replaying the afternoon's events. He thought about Harold's stories, the photos on the walls, and the loneliness that lingered beneath the surface. He wondered if Harold would remember him tomorrow, or if their meeting would fade into the haze of forgotten moments. What Marcus didn't know was that Harold hadn't forgotten. In fact, Harold had picked up the phone as soon as Marcus left, dialing a number he rarely used anymore. On the other end, a woman answered, Evelyn, Harold's daughter. Her voice was brisk at first, accustomed to checking in on her father without expecting much excitement. But as Harold recounted the story of the young boy who had helped him find his way home, her tone changed. By the time Harold finished speaking, Evelyn sounded choked with emotion. We need to thank him properly, she said firmly. This boy, he reminded me of why Dad deserves to be cared for, of why we all matter. And so, unbeknownst to Marcus, plans were already in motion. Plans that would bring a luxury car to his doorstep and set off a chain of events neither he nor Harold could have predicted. But for now, Marcus drifted off to sleep, unaware that his simple act of kindness had planted seeds far greater than he could imagine. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of day that seemed to promise something new and unexpected. Marcus woke up feeling lighter than usual, as though the events of the previous afternoon had left a warm glow in his chest. He couldn't stop thinking about Harold, his stories, his memories, the way he clung to fragments of a life that felt just out of reach. It wasn't every day that Marcus encountered someone like Harold, and it made him wonder how many others might be quietly struggling in their own ways. As he got ready for school, Marcus's mom, Lisa, teased him about being unusually quiet during breakfast. You've got that thoughtful look again, she said with a smile, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs in front of him. Still thinking about Mr. Harold? Marcus shrugged, poking at his food with a fork. I guess. I just hope he's okay today. Lisa nodded knowingly. She had raised Marcus to care about people, even strangers. But she also knew how much her son carried on his shoulders. At 14, Marcus was wise beyond his years, partly because life hadn't always been easy for their family. They lived paycheck to paycheck, and Lisa worked long hours as a nurse to keep them afloat. Still, she tried her best to instill values of kindness and resilience in Marcus, hoping they would guide him through whatever challenges lay ahead. I'm sure he's fine, Lisa assured him gently. And if he needs help again, you'll know what to do. Marcus smiled faintly, appreciating her words, but deep down he wondered if he'd ever see Harold again. Somehow the thought of never crossing paths with the old man felt strange, as though their meeting had been too meaningful to end so abruptly. Meanwhile, miles away, Evelyn sat at her desk in a sleek office building, staring at her phone. The call from her father the night before had stayed with her, replaying in her mind like a song she couldn't shake. Harold rarely called her unprompted these days, and when he did, it was usually to ask for something practical, a ride to the store or help fixing the TV. But last night had been different. For the first time in years, Harold sounded genuinely happy, almost animated as he recounted the story of the young boy who had helped him find his way home. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, letting the memory wash over her. Her father's voice had cracked with emotion as he described Marcus's patience and kindness. He reminded me of Emma, Harold had said softly, referring to Evelyn's late mother, the way she used to take care of everyone. It was those words that struck a chord deep within Evelyn. Growing up, she had idolized her mother, the way she balanced work and family, the way she always seemed to have time for anyone who needed her. After Emma passed away, Evelyn had promised herself she would carry on her legacy. But somewhere along the way, life had gotten busy. Between her demanding job as a corporate executive and raising 2 teenagers of her own, Evelyn found herself stretched thin. Visits to her father became less frequent, phone calls shorter. Guilt gnawed at her constantly, but she told herself there simply weren't enough hours in the day. Now, hearing her father speak so fondly of Marcus, a stranger who had taken the time to help him, made Evelyn realize how much she had let slip. This boy, barely into his teens, had done what she often struggled to do, show up for Harold in a moment of need. And not just physically. He had listened, truly listened to her father's stories, treating him with a dignity and respect that Evelyn feared she sometimes failed to give. Determined to make things right, Evelyn picked up her phone and dialed her assistant. "Cancel my meetings for this afternoon," she instructed firmly. "I need to go somewhere important." By mid-morning, Evelyn was behind the wheel of her luxury car, navigating the familiar streets of her childhood neighborhood. As she drove, memories flooded back, riding her bike down these same roads, playing hide-and-seek in the park where Harold had been found. The sight of the yellow-shuttered house brought a pang of nostalgia, though she quickly reminded herself why she was here. When Evelyn arrived at Harold's house, she found him sitting in his recliner, flipping through an old photo album. His face lit up when he saw her, and he waved her over excitedly. "Evelyn, you're here." "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Dad," she replied, bending down to hug him tightly. The embrace lingered longer than usual, both of them savoring the connection they didn't share often enough. After catching up for a while, Evelyn steered the conversation toward Marcus. "Tell me more about this boy," she urged. "What exactly happened yesterday?" Harold launched into the story once again, his eyes sparkling as he described how Marcus had approached him in the park, guided him home, and listened to his rambling tales without judgment. "He didn't have to do any of that," Harold emphasized. "But he did, and it meant the world to me." Evelyn listened intently, her heart swelling with admiration for the young stranger. When Harold finished, she leaned forward, her tone resolute. "We need to thank him properly. Do you remember his name?" "Marcus," Harold said immediately. "Marcus Johnson. He lives around here somewhere. I think he mentioned passing by the park on his way home." With that clue, Evelyn set out, to track down Marcus. It didn't take long. The neighborhood was small, and word traveled fast. Within an hour, she had confirmed his address, a modest duplex tucked between rows of similar houses. As she parked her car outside, Evelyn took a deep breath, steeling herself for the encounter. She wasn't sure what to expect, but one thing was certain. She wanted to express her gratitude in a way that matched the magnitude of Marcus's kindness. When Marcus stepped outside later that afternoon to shoot hoops in the driveway, he froze at the sight of the black luxury car pulling up to his curb. A well-dressed woman stepped out carrying a bouquet of flowers and wearing a warm smile. For a moment, Marcus thought he must be dreaming. People like this didn't just show up in his neighborhood, not unless they were lost or delivering bad news. "Hi there," the woman said, approaching him with an outstretched hand. "Are you Marcus Johnson?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied cautiously, shaking her hand. "Who are you?" "My name is Evelyn Harper," she explained, her voice steady and sincere. "I'm Harold's daughter. He told me everything about what you did for him yesterday, and I wanted to come say thank you in person." Marcus blinked, startled. "Oh, you're welcome. I didn't really do much, though." Evelyn chuckled softly. "That's where you're wrong, Marcus. What you did meant more to my father, and to me, than you'll ever know. You gave him something precious, your time, your attention, and your compassion. In a world that often feels rushed and disconnected, that's rare." Feeling self-conscious, under her praise, Marcus shuffled his feet awkwardly. I figured he needed help, so I helped. And that's exactly why we need more people like you in the world," Evelyn said warmly. She handed him the bouquet of flowers, which he accepted with wide eyes. "These are for you and your family. Please share them." Marcus stared at the vibrant blooms, unsure what to say. "Thank you," he mumbled finally. "They're beautiful." Evelyn nodded, then reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "There's something else I want to give you, a token of our appreciation." She held it out to him, her expression unwavering. Hesitant, Marcus accepted the envelope and opened it carefully. Inside was a gift card to a local department store, along with a handwritten note that read to Marcus, "With heartfelt thanks for reminding us of the power of kindness." "I don't know what to say," Marcus admitted, his cheeks flushing. "This is too much." "It's not nearly enough," Evelyn countered gently. "But I hope it shows how much your actions mattered. You reminded me of something important, that no matter how busy life gets, we should always make time for the people who need us." Before leaving, Evelyn asked if she could meet Marcus's mother. Eager to include Lisa in the conversation, Marcus led her inside. Lisa greeted Evelyn with polite surprise, offering her a seat at the kitchen table. Over cups of tea, Evelyn shared more about Harold and expressed her gratitude once again. By the time she left, both Marcus and Lisa were overwhelmed, not just by the gifts but by the sincerity behind them. As the luxury car disappeared down the street, Marcus turned to his mom, still holding the bouquet. "Do you think she really meant all that?" he asked quietly. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn's visit became a topic of conversation in Marcus's household. The bouquet of flowers sat proudly on their dining table, its vibrant colors brightening up the small kitchen. Lisa couldn't stop marveling at how thoughtful Evelyn had been, while Marcus replayed the encounter in his mind over and over again. He kept wondering why someone as successful and busy as Evelyn would take time out of her day to thank him, personally. It wasn't just about the gift card or the flowers, it was the way she spoke to him, as if his actions truly mattered in a world much bigger than he realized. But Evelyn wasn't done yet. She found herself thinking about Marcus often, even during long meetings at work or late nights reviewing reports. There was something about the boy that stuck with her. His humility, his quiet strength, the way he carried himself despite clearly coming from humble beginnings. She began to see parallels between Marcus and her own father. Both were resilient, kind-hearted individuals who deserved more recognition than they received. One evening, as Evelyn sat alone in her apartment scrolling through old family photos, she paused on one of her mother, Emma. In the picture, Emma was kneeling in the garden, surrounded by roses, the very same flowers Harold had mentioned during his story. Evelyn felt a lump rise in her throat. Her mom had always believed in lifting others up, no matter how small the gesture. "Leave the world better than you found it," Emma used to say. It was a mantra Evelyn had tried to live by, though lately she'd wondered if she was falling short. That night, Evelyn made a decision. She picked up her phone and dialed Harold's number. When he answered, his voice sounded cheerful, almost youthful. "Evelyn, to what do I owe this call?" "I've been thinking about you, and Marcus," Evelyn replied, her tone warm but serious. "Dad, I want to do something for him, something meaningful." Harold chuckled softly. "You already thanked him, didn't you, with those fancy flowers and all?" "Yes, but it doesn't feel like enough," Evelyn admitted. "This boy, he reminded me of Mom, of everything she stood for. And I think we can help him in a way that honors her memory." Harold grew quiet for a moment before responding. "You're right, Evie. Your mother would have loved him. So what's your plan?" Evelyn explained her idea, a scholarship fund for Marcus, ensuring he could pursue higher education without financial barriers. Harold listened intently, his heart swelling with pride. By the end of the call, he was wiping tears from his eyes. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he said simply. The following Saturday, Evelyn returned to Marcus's neighborhood. This time, she brought along a folder filled with documents and a proposal she hoped would change his life forever. When Marcus saw her car pull up, he rushed outside, surprised to see her again so soon. "Ms. Harper," he exclaimed. "What are you doing here?" Evelyn stepped out of the car, smiling warmly. "I told you I wasn't done thanking you yet, Marcus. Is your mom home? I'd like to talk to both of you." Curious but intrigued, Marcus led Evelyn inside. Lisa greeted her warmly, offering tea, once again. They settled around the kitchen table where Evelyn wasted no time getting to the point. "Marcus, I've been reflecting a lot on our last conversation," she began, "and I realize that saying thank you isn't enough, not for what you did for my dad, and not for the kind of person you are." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, in his seat unsure where this was going. Evelyn opened the folder and slid a document across the table. "I want to invest in your future," she continued. "I'm setting up a scholarship fund in my mother's name, and I'd like you to be the first recipient. This will cover your tuition, books, and other expenses when you go to college." For a moment, the room fell silent. Marcus stared at the paper in front of him, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. College? Tuition covered? It sounded like a dream too good to be true. His voice barely above a whisper, he asked, "Why are you doing this for me?" Evelyn leaned forward, her expression earnest. "Because you remind me of the values my mother lived by: kindness, compassion, and selflessness. Because you took the time to help someone who couldn't repay you. And because I believe in your potential, Marcus. You have greatness inside you, and I want to make sure nothing stands in your way." Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes as she reached for Evelyn's hand. "We don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice trembling. This is life-changing." "There's no need to thank me," Evelyn replied gently. "Just promise me one thing, that you'll use this opportunity to keep making the world a better place. That's all I ask." Marcus nodded, overwhelmed by emotion. For years, he'd dreamed of going to college, of breaking free from the limitations of his circumstances. But he'd never dared to hope it could actually happen. Now, thanks to Evelyn's generosity, the impossible suddenly felt within reach. As the days turned into weeks, word of Evelyn's gesture spread throughout the community. Neighbors stopped by to congratulate Marcus and his mom, sharing stories of how Harold had become more animated since meeting Marcus. Even Harold himself seemed revitalized, taking daily walks around the block and chatting with anyone who crossed his path. He often mentioned Marcus by name, calling him a true hero whenever the chance arose. At school, Marcus noticed a shift in his own mindset. Knowing that someone believed in him gave him a newfound confidence. He started studying harder, staying late after class to ask teachers for extra help. He joined the debate club, surprising himself with his ability to articulate ideas clearly and persuasively. Slowly but surely, Marcus began to envision a future beyond his current reality, one where he could make a difference just like Evelyn had. Meanwhile, Evelyn stayed in touch, checking in regularly to see how Marcus was doing. During one of her visits, she brought along an old photo album filled with pictures of her mother, Emma. As they flipped through the pages together, Evelyn shared stories of Emma's love for gardening, her passion for helping others, and her unwavering belief in the goodness of people. "She would have adored you, Marcus," Evelyn said softly. "You remind me so much of her." By the time Evelyn left that afternoon, Marcus felt a deep sense of connection, not just to Evelyn, but to the legacy of kindness she was trying to uphold. He realized that her gift wasn't just about money. It was about creating a ripple effect, inspiring him to pay it forward in his own way. Months later, as Marcus stood on stage accepting an award for academic excellence at his middle school graduation, he thought back to that chilly autumn afternoon in the park. If he hadn't stopped to help Harold, none of this would have happened. The luxury car pulling up to his door, the scholarship, the renewed hope for his future. All of it stemmed from a single act of kindness. As applause filled the auditorium, Marcus glanced toward the crowd and spotted Evelyn sitting beside his mom, clapping enthusiastically. Their eyes met, and she gave him a subtle nod as if to say, "This is only the beginning." Marcus smiled, knowing she was right. His journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. He would spend the rest of his life proving that Evelyn's faith in him had not been misplaced. Years passed, and Marcus's life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. The scholarship Evelyn had set up wasn't just a financial gift. It was the key to unlocking doors that had once seemed firmly shut. With her support, Marcus graduated high school at the top of his class, earning accolades not only for his academic achievements but also for his leadership and community involvement. He became known as the boy who didn't let circumstances define him, the young man who carried kindness in his heart and determination in his stride. When it came time to choose a college, Marcus faced a dilemma. Offers poured in from prestigious universities across the country, each promising opportunities and resources beyond his wildest dreams. But instead of being swept away by grandeur or prestige, Marcus thought carefully about what mattered most to him. He remembered Harold, the loneliness etched into his face, the fragments of memories he clung to, and realized where his true passion lay. He wanted to help people like Harold, individuals struggling with dementia and Alzheimer's disease, ensuring they were seen, heard, and cared for. With this goal in mind, Marcus chose a university renowned for its programs in neuroscience and geriatric care. On move-in day, as he unpacked his belongings in a modest dorm room, he felt both excitement and nervousness bubbling inside him. For the first time, he was stepping into a world far removed from the familiar streets of his neighborhood. Yet despite the unfamiliarity, Marcus carried with him the lessons he'd learned: resilience, empathy, and the belief that even small actions could create ripples of change. College life proved challenging but rewarding. Marcus threw himself into his studies, spending countless hours in labs and libraries determined to excel. He joined student organizations focused on mental health awareness and volunteered at local senior centers, listening to stories much like Harold's and offering companionship to those who needed it most. These experiences deepened his understanding of the struggles faced by seniors and reinforced his commitment to making a difference. During his sophomore year, Marcus decided to take on a research project exploring innovative ways to improve memory retention in patients with early-stage Alzheimer's. His advisor, Dr. Patel, was impressed by his dedication and encouraged him to apply for a summer internship at a cutting-edge medical institute. Though intimidated by the idea of competing against students from Ivy League schools, Marcus submitted his application, pouring his heart into the essay portion. When the acceptance letter arrived, he called Evelyn immediately to share the news. "You've earned this, Marcus," Evelyn said proudly over the phone. "I'm so proud of you." The internship turned out to be a turning point. Working alongside leading scientists, Marcus contributed to groundbreaking research that explored non-invasive therapies for neurodegenerative diseases. His insights, shaped by years of interacting with seniors like Harold, brought fresh perspectives to the team. By the end of the summer, his work had caught the attention of several mentors, who urged him to consider pursuing a graduate degree. But Marcus's journey wasn't without challenges. Balancing coursework, internships, and personal responsibilities tested his resolve. There were late nights spent studying when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, moments of self-doubt when he questioned whether he belonged in such competitive spaces. Yet every time he felt like giving up, he thought of Harold, Evelyn, and his mom, people who believed in him when he struggled to believe in himself. One particularly tough semester, Marcus returned home during winter break to recharge. As he sat around the kitchen table with Lisa, sharing stories of his triumphs and struggles, she reminded him of something simple, yet profound. "You've always been stronger than you think, sweetheart. Don't forget why you started." Her words stayed with Marcus throughout the rest of his college years, fueling his perseverance. And when graduation day finally arrived, Marcus stood tall in his cap and gown, beaming with pride as he accepted his diploma. Among the sea of faces in the audience, Evelyn sat front and center, her eyes glistening with tears. Beside her, Harold, now older and frailer but still full of spirit, clapped enthusiastically, his voice rising above the crowd. "That's my boy," he shouted, drawing laughter and applause from those nearby. After graduation, Marcus began working at a non-profit organization. Dedicated to supporting families affected by dementia, it was here that he truly found his calling. Every day he interacted with patients and caregivers, offering guidance, resources, and a listening ear. He organized workshops, fundraisers, and community events aimed at raising awareness about Alzheimer's and reducing the stigma surrounding it. Slowly but surely, Marcus became a beacon of hope for countless families navigating the same struggles Harold had faced. His efforts didn't go unnoticed. Local newspapers featured articles about his work, highlighting how a young man from humble beginnings had risen to make a significant impact. One reporter asked him during an interview, "What drives you to do this work?" Marcus paused, reflecting on the question. Then, with a quiet smile, he replied, "It's simple. I want to remind people that no matter how lost they may feel, they're never alone. Everyone deserves to be valued, especially those who might otherwise be forgotten." Word of Marcus's success reached Evelyn, who couldn't have been prouder. She often reflected on the chain of events that had brought them together. The chance meeting in the park, the decision to invest in Marcus's future, and the ripple effects that followed. In many ways, Marcus had become part of her family, a living testament to the power of kindness and the importance of paying it forward. Harold, too, remained a constant presence in Marcus's life. Though his condition worsened with age, Marcus visited him regularly, bringing updates about his work and sharing stories of the people he'd helped. During one such visit, Harold grasped Marcus's hand tightly and said, "You've done more than anyone could ask, son. Thank you for carrying the torch." As Marcus continued to grow in his career, he never forgot where it all began. He established a mentorship program for underprivileged youth, encouraging them to pursue education and chase their dreams regardless of their circumstances. Inspired by Evelyn's generosity, he vowed to give back in any way he could, knowing firsthand how transformative a single act of kindness could be. Looking back on his journey, Marcus realized that life had a funny way of connecting people across time and space. That chilly autumn afternoon in the park hadn't just changed Harold's day, it had ignited a series of events that reshaped Marcus's destiny and touched countless lives along the way. Years later, Marcus stood in the middle of a bustling community center that bore his name, the Marcus Johnson Center for Memory and Connection. The walls were adorned with vibrant murals depicting scenes of unity, families spending time together, young people helping elders, and communities coming alive through shared experiences. It was a place born out of Marcus's vision to create a safe haven for seniors living with dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as their families. More than just a care facility, it was a hub for connection, education, and healing. The journey to this moment hadn't been easy, but Marcus had poured every ounce of his energy into making it happen. He remembered the early days when he first pitched the idea to donors and local leaders. Many had doubted whether such an ambitious project could succeed, especially given the limited resources available. But Marcus refused to give up. Drawing on his own story, the boy from the neighborhood who once helped a lost man find his way home, he reminded everyone that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental change. Evelyn played a pivotal role in bringing the center to life. She used her influence and connections to rally support, securing funding from corporate sponsors and private philanthropists. Her belief in Marcus never wavered, and she often joked that she felt like a proud aunt watching him grow into the leader he was always meant to become. Harold, too, had left an indelible mark on the project. Though he passed away peacefully a few years earlier, his memory lived on in every corner of the center. A plaque near the entrance read, "Dedicated to Harold Harper, whose courage inspired us all." On the grand opening day, the center buzzed with excitement. Dozens of families gathered to celebrate its launch, including Evelyn, Lisa, and several of Marcus's childhood friends. As Marcus stood at the podium, preparing to deliver his speech, he took a deep breath, letting the significance of the moment wash over her. This wasn't just about him, it was about everyone who had believed in him along the way. "Thank you all for being here today," Marcus began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "When I think about how this place came to be, I'm reminded of something my mom always told me. Everything happens for a reason." At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant, but looking back now, I see how true those words really are. He paused, scanning the crowd. His eyes landed on Evelyn, who sat smiling warmly, tears glistening in her eyes. Beside her, Lisa clutched a tissue, beaming with pride. This center exists because of people like Evelyn, who saw potential in a kid from the neighborhood and decided to invest in his future. It exists because of my mom, who taught me the value of hard work and compassion. And most importantly, it exists because of Harold, a man I met one chilly autumn afternoon sitting alone on a park bench searching for a way home. The audience listened intently, captivated by Marcus's words. He went on to share how that chance encounter had shaped his life, inspiring him to dedicate his career to helping others. Harold reminded me that behind every diagnosis there's a person, a son, a father, a husband, a friend, who deserves to be seen and loved. That's why we're here today, to ensure no one feels forgotten or alone. As applause erupted throughout the room, Marcus stepped down from the podium, shaking hands and hugging well-wishers. Later, during the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Evelyn approached him, pulling him aside for a quiet moment. "You've done incredible things, Marcus," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "My mother would have been so proud of you." Marcus smiled, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Evelyn. You gave me the tools to dream bigger than I ever thought possible. Thank you for everything." In the months that followed, the center quickly became a cornerstone of the community. Seniors participated in art therapy sessions, music programs, and memory workshops designed to stimulate cognitive function while fostering joy and creativity. Families attended support groups, learning how to navigate the challenges of caring for loved ones with dementia. Volunteers, young and old, came together to build intergenerational bonds, proving that age was no barrier to forming meaningful relationships. One of the most impactful initiatives Marcus introduced was a mentorship program modeled after his own experience. High school students from underserved neighborhoods were paired with senior residents, spending time together, sharing stories, skills, and laughter. For many of these teens, the program opened their eyes to the resilience and wisdom of older generations. Some even credited it with inspiring them to pursue careers in healthcare, social work, or education. Among the participants was a shy 15-year-old named Jamal, who reminded Marcus so much of himself at that age. Jamal initially joined the program, reluctantly, unsure of what to expect. But after bonding with a resident named Mrs. Thompson, who taught him how to bake her famous apple pie, he blossomed. By the end of the year, Jamal delivered a heartfelt speech at the center's annual gala, thanking Mrs. Thompson for showing him the importance of patience and perseverance. Seeing moments like these reaffirmed Marcus's belief in the power of connection. Every smile, every hug, every shared laugh was proof that kindness could ripple outward, touching lives in ways both big and small. As the years went by, Marcus continued to expand the center's reach, partnering with schools, hospitals, and advocacy groups to promote awareness and understanding of dementia-related illnesses. He traveled across the country giving talks and workshops, urging others to embrace empathy and action in their communities. Yet despite his growing fame, Marcus remained grounded, never forgetting the values instilled in him by his family and mentors. One crisp autumn afternoon, exactly 2 decades after he first met Harold, Marcus found himself walking through the same park where it all began. Leaves crunched beneath his feet, and the air carried the familiar chill of approaching winter. Stopping at the bench where Harold had sat all those years ago, Marcus took a moment to reflect. So much had changed since that day. He was no longer the uncertain teenager unsure of his place in the world. He was a man who had built a legacy rooted in compassion and purpose. Yet standing there, he realized that the essence of who he was hadn't changed at all. He was still the boy who believed in doing the right thing, even when it seemed small or insignificant. A young girl playing nearby caught his attention. She was chasing after a soccer ball that had rolled close to the bench. When she noticed Marcus watching her, she smiled shyly and waved. Marcus waved back, chuckling softly. In that simple exchange, he saw the cycle of kindness continuing, a reminder that each generation has the power to uplift the next. As he walked away from the park, Marcus felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had taken him on an extraordinary journey, one filled with challenges, triumphs, and countless blessings. But at its core, it was a story about connection, the ties that bind us to one another, and the ripples we create when we choose to care.